Good morning. It is the vlog ride, and we are driving into work. We've got a nice overcast day, so I'm taking advantage of it to go ahead and do some recording. I wanted to talk a little bit more about Star Wars. I want to start with the end, and I want to have a conversation about Rise of Skywalker and my own theory that I've got that seems to be a pretty common theory. Film theory has talked about it. Some other people who do Star Wars theories and whatnot have talked about it. I've been looking at videos and watching them. And there does seem to be a common idea that Rey may be turning bad. And this is not something that comes out of nowhere. It is something that has a lot of setup in the movies so far. At least the things that have been set up can be interpreted that way. To know if they can be interpreted well another way, we'd have to get through the movies to see. But there is a lot of setup that looks like Rey is going to go bad. And the trailers certainly help that. I don't know when I first thought about, what if Rey goes bad. I really don't remember. I think it was a little bit after, I think it was sometime after Last Jedi and before, I think it was before the first trailer. Something about the first trailer, though, really had me going, but what if? And I don't remember exactly what it was in the trailer that had me just really go, I don't think Rey's going to be the good guy. And had me thinking about the framing for the scene where Kylo Ren's in the thing, and he's flying at her, and she does the flip to attack him or whatever. And it's like, what if he's the good guy there? What if she's the one that's gone bad? And I don't remember what it was about it. But of course, what everybody's really talking about with that first trailer was Palpatine's laugh at the end. So we know in some way, shape, or form, Palpatine is returning. And it is very apparent from other new extended universe stuff that there is some kind of tie between Rey and Palpatine, because Palpatine made use of Jakku, which is the planet that we find Rey on. Rey, who has no memory of how she got there, and coincidence is something really hard to pull off in fiction effectively. You can do it with little things, but a lot of times when you put a coincidence in a movie, it just comes off as contrived. When you want to have your two main leads meet up for a romance, and they just happen to meet up at this location, when neither of them had any desire to be in the same place with each other. That coincidence can be really easy to just come off contrived and be there, because the leads are supposed to fall in love and are supposed to get back, into each other's orbit after meeting and bouncing off. It's really hard to make coincidence work. And this is the kind of coincidence that would not work as a coincidence. For her to just happen to know almost nothing about her past and be on this planet where, Palpatine is doing some really important stuff for his, contingency plans. That would not be a good coincidence to have. So there is some kind of tie there. I've seen some interesting interpretations about the cave scene in The Last Jedi, where that is representing that she is the result of a cloning experiment, which makes sense for old extended universe stuff. I think it's called Legends now, because one of the things I do remember is that Palpatine had made for himself clones of himself, and I think he used the Force to possess them or something. I'm not really sure. I don't remember how that goes exactly, but I remember he had clones and would reemerge in these clones. So, that was a big deal. So I don't know if she's a clone of Palpatine, if she is supposed to be a clone of Anakin, a clone of Padme. Not sure how that would go, but it is a pretty safe assumption, I think, a pretty safe guess that she is somehow tied into Palpatine's contingencies. The second trailer drops, and we have Rey at the end of it looking all evil with Darth Maul's lightsabers. That's awesome. I loved that scene. I smiled so much when I saw it. Really plays into the theory and to a lot of the setup that's been done in the movies that can be interpreted as Rey is going to go bad. That Rey is going to go bad. How that will work, what we'll see, how that will resolve, we don't know. We'll have to see the movie to find out. But really interesting. And because her and Kylo Ren have this tie thing going on, this kind of dichotomy, I do think that Rey falling kind of means that Kylo Ren has to come back to the light side. And there are a lot of ways in which that works. It works for the dichotomy of the two characters. It works for the title of the movie. And it works for the homage that the movies have been paying to the original trilogy. The Rise of Skywalker would be the redemption of Kylo Ren, because he is a Skywalker. It would be... it would call back to Return of the Jedi, because the Return of the Jedi is the redemption of Anakin. So there's a lot that makes this idea work. It'll just be whether or not they do it. And I am torn on whether or not I like it. From a narrative standpoint, I really do like it. Like I said, there is a lot of setup that can be interpreted as Rey is going to go bad, that she is either already enmeshed in the dark side or she will fall to the dark side. There's a lot of setup for it, so it makes a lot of narrative sense. There's a lot of other stuff that it works with for how things are set up on the meta level and things like that. But at the same time, Star Wars has always had this problem of having strong female heroes in its movies. We don't have a lot of them. And it's sad because there are a lot of female fans. There are a lot of female fans who are much more serious and dedicated fans of Star Wars than I am. It'd be nice to see female heroes there and stay and continue on their stories. More of them. And it's like, from a narrative standpoint, from everything that's set up, because I think that she would be a very interesting villain to see in later movies, I would like to see Rey become a villain. There's a lot that just makes sense for it. It seemed like a good story. But but I'm kind of afraid that it will signal that, yeah, Star Wars is still going to have this problem of, at least in its movies, not having a whole lot of good, strong female characters, having that underrepresented as it always has been. And I don't like that. But, you know, I don't know. It's one of those things where ideals and story don't always mesh. A wise woman once said, no story is pure. And yeah, so there you go. You know, my writer side wants to see Rey go bad, and my feminist side doesn't. But that's not necessarily true. My feminist side does still want to see it. It's complicated. It really is. But yeah, I do want to see her go bad. I do want to see all of those, you know, hints and setups pay off in that way, because it seems to be where they're headed to. I am a little scared, though, that all of this stuff was set up and that it's not going to happen, and that we're going to get another Star Wars retcon because of people changing their mind. And I don't think it's going to be because of feminism that people would change their mind. If people have changed their mind about it, I think it's going to be because of backlash. In Game of Thrones, there is a lot of stuff that sets up that Daenerys Targaryen is going to go bad. Spoilers? Spoilers! I'll put spoilers in the description. There's a lot of setup in Game of Thrones from the very beginning that Daenerys Targaryen is going to go bad. Hell, there is setup in the very first chapter of Game of Thrones in the book that Bran is going to end up sitting on the Iron Throne, which is melted now, but you know what I mean. Namely, in the book, when the execution of the deserter from the Wall happens, Ned is talking to Bran. And he is talking to Bran as someone who is teaching somebody who is going to be a king. Which is kind of funny, because Bran is the youngest son. So, it's like, yeah. When I first read the book, I didn't think anything about it. Knowing what happens at the end of the movies, you know, if this is in fact what happens at the end of the books as well, which we don't really know. We know that they were working from notes from Martin, but whether or not that actually is going to be in the books or not, we don't know. But like, knowing that makes me look at that whole thing with Ned talking to Bran this way, makes me look at it in a whole different light, and makes me go, that's a setup. Not a whole lot else was really set up for Bran becoming, you know, king over all of the kingdoms, but that was. So even that is set up poorly, but it's still set up. Daenerys going bad has a lot of setup from the very first book. There is a lot there that if you look at, you go, yeah, this isn't going to end well. this is going to get turned around somehow. The problem is that you cannot just set something up. Like, one of the problems with Bran is that, from what I can see, the only setup to Bran's going to be king one day is the way that Ned talks to him and explains to him why this deserter is being executed and why this is important and why this matters. There doesn't seem to be anything else to reinforce that setup, to remind to it, to further establish it. Nothing. You cannot just have setup. You have to have other things to establish, to reinforce, to remind what you're setting up. And there is a lot of setup for, I think this is going to go badly with regards to Daenerys, but then everything got rushed, and there was not adequate time to actually put things in motion in a satisfying way for a lot of viewers. And the result is something that does make narrative sense, mostly. I'll refer you over to Lindsay Ellis. She actually breaks it down really well as to just how deeply this goes wrong. Like, the idea that, the idea very firmly in a lot of the fiction, that the way she goes bad isn't maybe the way it was actually supposed to happen, and that maybe she was supposed to go bad not because she just snaps, but because she actually gets betrayed. And so I'll refer you to her. She does a really excellent breakdown of all of this. I'm concerned with the backlash, and I understand where the backlash comes from. It was pretty extreme. My worry is that there is a lot of setup and a lot of establishment for Rey to turn to the dark side, and that the backlash that we saw to another beloved character, because while Rey is controversial in some circles that I don't care about, there is actually a lot of praise for her character too. And I worry that the backlash that we saw to Daenerys' fall is going to make creators afraid to have other strong female heroic characters fall, even when that is well established that they might or will. And that's my big fear. And my big fear is that because there is a lot of establishment in this, there is a lot that points that direction. My fear is that we're going to get this retcon kind of feeling in the movie if she doesn't. And I don't want that. That is going to ruin the movie for me. Here soon, I don't know when I'm going to do it because it'll depend on when I want to. I kind of want to watch the movie again before I do it. I'm going to talk about the retconning that I see in Revenge of the Sith, which is one of the main reasons that I really just do not like that movie. The whole movie just feels like a giant retcon to me. And I don't just mean inconsistencies between what happens in the prequels and what we are told about in the original trilogy. I mean, there are things that are established there are things that happen, dialogue that is spoken, that just kind of comes off kind of weird or awkward or flat. But if other things were done in the movie, that would actually make more sense with the original trilogy would give a whole different weight to those dialogues, to those events, to those scenes. I really feel like there was a lot of retcon, and I kind of feel like sometimes a lot of that retcon was done during production and in post-production. It's something that I'll get into, and I'm so afraid of seeing that with the Rise of Skywalker. So I'm really hoping that the Game of Thrones backlash doesn't affect the movie in that way. I mean, if it does, it'll probably be very negative, and it'll probably be negatively received, which means we probably won't see that BS anymore. But I'm really hoping that it just doesn't. I'm just really hoping it doesn't, because so those are my takes and my worries and my fears about the movie. I want to see Rey go bad. We need more strong female characters to stay heroic in Star Wars. But that doesn't mean it has to be Rey. I don't think that need is what would keep Rey from going bad. I think that I think the possibility of her going bad and being bad is very well set up. My fear is that if it doesn't happen, it's going to happen as a result of concern over backlash for other beloved series, and that's going to have a very retconny feeling because of how well established the idea that she could go bad is. So that's my take, my thoughts. We'll see. I'm sure we'll have at least one more trailer. We gotta have at least one more trailer that drops. I think movies like this usually get 3 or 4 trailers. So, if we do, we'll get even more hints about what's going to happen with Rey and with Kylo Ren and all that fun stuff. I'm looking forward to the movie either way. I'm hoping that I will enjoy it. I'm hoping that I won't be disappointed. I haven't been disappointed in the movies so far. The Last Jedi was not perfect, but it was overall a really good movie, and I really enjoy it. So I'm really hoping that I will feel the same way about Rise of Skywalker. We'll see. Anyway, if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, all that fun stuff. Hit me up on Twitter if you would like. Please comment, share your thoughts about where you think Rise of Skywalker may go, and what do you see the same kind of setup and establishment for Rey to go bad and for Kylo Ren to be redeemed that I have read into the movies, or do you see and read it as something else? If you don't, I would actually be interested in knowing your take on it, because if they don't, if that's not the intention, then I'd be very interested in seeing how certain things are interpreted by people who don't see that. So, things like the cave and the dichotomy with her and Ren, and the way that the dark side just seems to call to her, the cannot possibly be a coincidence connection that seems to be there between her and Palpatine, things like that. So, yeah. Anyway, peace.